30 years of games, one truly awful note to leave on. This series has had its many downs, but nowhere else would you find a long gaming franchise so diverse in content and so innovative in its pursuit for excellence. 6 years on, and the last mainline entry, Metal Gear Solid 5, still remains the peak of what the stealth action genre can offer, and I don't think that's changing anytime soon. Not if the leaked new Splinter Cell game is still at Ubisoft's helm. Hitman comes very close, but it lacks the polish, the animation and fidelity that comes with a very talented studio, an incredible game engine and 5 years of development. With the stealth genre now starved and withering, should the Metal Gear Solid franchise even continue? Now I know what most of you are thinking. Of course it should continue, what a dumb question and a pointless video. And you'd be right.
Excellent, Snake.
Thanks for watching. I don't think it's that simple. 3 decades of games means so many eras and avenues have already been covered, making it difficult to proceed. Especially when we already have a conclusive ending. There are many directions the franchise can take. I'll go over the obvious ones and conclude with a little unique idea of my own. Now I've already covered the idea of a Metal Gear Solid 1 remake in this video here, explaining my concerns and hopes for a remake I was 60% sure was going to happen, but new sources have indicated that Metal Gear Solid 3 is more likely to be remade, which would be a lot easier, and they could retain many of the old elements whilst modernizing others. Metal Gear Survive and Metal Gear Solid 3 Pachinko show that the idea of creativity doesn't exist within the confines of Konami's own studios, so I wouldn't trust them to do anything new with the series, lest they insult the community any further. But a remake or a remaster is difficult to screw up. Excuse me. Plus, they've left the unrivaled Fox engine to rot in a cell, as they've expressed more interest in the Unreal Engine, which baffles the hell out of me, but you know, whatever, it is what it is. Metal Gear Solid 3 and the Fox engine would be a match made in heaven. This remake would be a step in the right direction for the series, to help us forget about the 2 monstrosities they stained the MGS name with. Metal Gear Solid 3 isn't my number one favourite of the games, but gosh darn, a remake or remaster would be glorious. The game has some of the richest gameplay mechanics of the series up until Metal Gear Solid 5. The amount of wacky methods and techniques you could use against the enemy was unparalleled. Plus, it's the number one fan favourite, so if you plan to win back some fans, bringing this game back is the way to go. Now, if you license the series out to a capable, passionate studio, I'd encourage them to remake Metal Gear 1. There's so much potential there. We spent many games building up Solid Snake, and we spent all of Metal Gear Solid 5 building up Venom Snake, and what would later become Outer Heaven. How incredible would it be to see them finally clash? Having Solid Snake destroy the army you helped build, and then defeat Venom Snake. Plus, we have a great opportunity to explore Solid Snake and Big Boss's relationship, as we only got a taste of that in the series. Since Venom Snake is not the real Big Boss, and we had an ambiguous ending to Metal Gear Solid 5, many fans now take Venom Snake's relationship with Big Boss as just a loyal servant fulfilling his role to the end. But that's not how I saw it at all. I feel it's so much more interesting if Venom Snake was once loyal, but during the events of Metal Gear Solid 5 he's clearly losing his mind, and then after Metal Gear Solid 5 he snaps at some point, rejecting being a slave to this role any longer, and then he triggers the Outer Heaven uprising by his own will, forcing the real Big Boss, who helped train Solid Snake, to send him to stop Venom, not because it's a suicide mission and he wishes to get Solid Snake killed, but because he believes in him as a soldier and that he's the best chance to eliminate Venom, as Big Boss cannot blow his cover by doing it himself. I think this angle is way more compelling, as it echoes the Boss vs Naked Snake story, where she believes Naked Snake is the only one that can kill her, as she is betrayed by the government. It fits that tragic irony we got from the story in Metal Gear Solid 3. If the story in the remake took this angle, it would add so much weight to the eventual Metal Gear 2 remake, and it'll make you struggle with the idea of killing Big Boss. Much like the idea of killing the Boss back in Metal Gear Solid 3. I think it's a lot better than seeing Venom Snake and Big Boss twirling their mustaches as they make their evil plan to send Solid Snake on a suicide mission, only for them to be shocked that he succeeds. I don't think that's good storytelling. Plus, it would explain why Solid Snake has so much PTSD after the events of Metal Gear 2, as he becomes a wreck living in Alaska, drinking too much. Killing his mentor, who trained him and betrayed his unit, must have really messed him up. But that's only if we get to see their relationship played out more. Otherwise, the PTSD element doesn't work. Anyways, it seems like I can make an entire video on this idea alone. Maybe I'll explore that in the future. But for now, let's explore a few more ideas. You probably all know about Metal Gear Rising by Platinum Games, a game about Raiden 4 years after the events of Metal Gear Solid 4. But what you probably didn't know is that it came from a cancelled project developed by Kojima Productions themselves. It was called Metal Gear Solid Rising, and the idea was to explore the events between Metal Gear Solid 2 and 4. How Raiden dealt with the mind-breaking craziness endured during Metal Gear Solid 2 and became a cyborg ninja. Raiden is one of my favourite characters of the series, and I love the idea of exploring his character and journey. It would be him learning to become a ninja, so the crazy feats he accomplishes later would be stripped back a bit. We'd have more of a grounded sword fighting game. We know he saved Sonny from the Patriots at one point, so there are opportunities of infiltration in there too. I don't know. I see a potential for a dramatic story about a fractured man trying to overcome decades of manipulation through the art of sword fighting. Most of you know about this one, but it's just interesting to think about. Seeing the boss and her Cobra unit turning the tide in World War II. You also have that dramatic angle of her being pregnant, giving birth on the battlefield to Ocelot, and having him being taken away by the philosophers. There's a lot of emotional storytelling potential there, but I have two problems with this angle. Firstly, we already know quite a bit about her endeavours as she explained them in 3, so they'd have to come up with other captivating plot points to construct a cohesive narrative. Secondly, I fear that having a game about the boss demystifies her. She was always an enigma. You never quite knew what she was thinking, and just how excruciatingly painful her life was. It was a lot more fascinating to imagine it. I think Big Boss himself has suffered some of this exact demystification, thanks to 50,000 games based on him, but he still has a lot of mystery, thankfully. Overall, World War II is an intriguing timeline to take MGS2. I imagine the Cobra unit was quite stealthy in their pursuit, so there'd be a lot of stealth gameplay opportunities kept intact, along with the bombastic action of warfare. The more I think of it, the more I kinda want to see it. This is a way easier timeline to make a game out of. Otacon and Solid Snake during their philanthropy years. After the events of Metal Gear Solid 1, Ocelot leaked out the blueprints of Metal Gear Rex, resulting in the whole world making their own Metal Gear weapons. So both before and after MGS2, there's an entire world to explore as Snake and Otacon go on countless missions to eliminate the threats. Plenty of wiggle room to explore. It would probably work a lot better as an animated movie. Now, my own idea of where to take the story probably wouldn't work well as a game, at least in the traditional sense. In the entire Metal Gear Solid timeline, there's one place I want to see, and it's right here. I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, but I'd love to see Solid Snake during his 4 years as a musher in Alaska, dealing with his PTSD and slight alcoholism. The military had now deemed Solid Snake as a criminal, with several cases of misconduct in his career. So, he now hides away in Alaska, and at one point even participates in an Iditarod, apologies if I messed that up, trail sled dog race with his own 50 huskies that he looks after. If this story was to be presented in a game, you'd probably need an open world with a few small towns. Maybe a small military unit tracks him down there, and you have to fight them off at some point. Or even survivors of Zanzibar, who still carry on Big Boss's ideas, getting revenge on Snake. There are ways to make it work. I can picture a scene with Snake in the bar being hustled by drunk idiots until he's forced to use CQC, after which he hates himself for using the fighting technique of a traitor, which he reflects on in a coded conversation in Metal Gear Solid 4, by the way.
Hey Snake, since when did you learn how to use CQC?
I got the training back when I was in Foxhound, but I never used it in actual combat.
You had those skills all this time and never used them? Why?
The man who taught me was my former commander in Foxhound.
Big boss?
Never felt right using a technique learned from a man who'd betrayed his unit.
In conclusion, my answer is definitely yes. Metal Gear Solid should continue, at least for one more entry, no less than great. Objectively, they should remake Metal Gear Solid 3 to win back the fans. Subjectively, they should remake Metal Gear 1 and 2. And personally, they should make that story about Snake in Alaska in some form. I'm sick of the overabundance of leaks about Metal Gear Solid entries, so hopefully something materializes soon to stop baseless rumors. Anyways, if you made it this far, thanks. Until next time.